right, welcome everyone. This is the first session of the brand new series we're doing called Back to Basics. There's going to be 10 different 30-minute workshops. We're really starting to go to the very basics. And you'll see these offered probably throughout this entire year, periodically. So this first one, I'm going to share with you an infographic, and we're also going to share a couple of other documents with you that we're going to go over. Now, I am not the instructional designer here. We have instructional designers in the room who can also add some information to this. I used to be in an instructional design role. I'll tap into that. I tapped into that as I made this infographic for all of you. Maybe Peg, if you don't mind, you can throw this into the chats for all of you. So I've outlined this in 5 simple steps, and we can have a conversation about this. If you remember what it was like to start a whole new course from scratch or revise a course. But the first thing that you're going to do is figure out what is it that you want your students to be doing. If you're revising a class, maybe you just want to just start completely from scratch and don't think about what you had the students doing before. Even if you taught the class for 10 years, just clean slate. Whole new, this is the class title. This is the description that you're given, right? You have to go by the description that you're given. What do you want the students to be able to do? What should they know? And set those goals, write them from the beginning and write them down. You can do it on a piece of paper. You can do it on the computer. So there are a couple of different tools that you can use. You can find some tools online if you want, but we can also provide a couple of tools for you. This is our fancier template. I believe Branka designed this one. Right, Branka? I think this is yours. We have this course design template that you can use to completely redesign or start from scratch. We have this one. And Peg can throw this, the link to this file in the chat. And then where's the other one? Where are you at? This one. This is also super simple. This one is very, very, very simple. Okay. I think you made this one too, Branka. Or maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure who made this on both of these, but I see Branka's name on this one. All right, so we have 2 templates you can use, or you can do the Angela way, which this is the way I used to do it back in the day when I designed courses. I literally used this and a pencil because I would change things. And so I would want to use a pencil because I would move things around, and that's the way that I would do it using, that's why I would use a pencil. All right, so we have those tools. Would anybody do it any different way? I'm just curious.
I use a spreadsheet just because Excel, but I just, I put the
Just
weekly
because you like
topic.
Excel?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I like anything that I can cut and paste and maneuver and um shift around quite easily. So, it's essentially a Word document. The same principle as a Word document.
All right, Jennifer, Terry, Ashley, Julianne, do you use anything in particular that you like?
So
Whoa, what did I do?
oh, go ahead.
Come back. There you are.
Oh, I was gonna say I just used Excel like Peg described. I put the weeks and then rearranged the titles and then put what the old content was, new content. So it was very helpful using Excel.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to find mine. I'll bring it up. But basically, it's the same thing. I mean, it basically sets this is the week, this is the topic, these are the learning objectives, these are the weekly activities, these are the weekly assessments. And then, 1 week, then the next week, then the next week, and then I just go down and can fill it in from there. Oh, and absolutely, Ashley, I use Claude to help me a lot with my when I'm setting up learning objectives and the like.
Well, now that we have AI, of course, we didn't have that
Right.
in ancient times.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. But yeah, use it to your advantage for sure. Use it to your advantage. Okay, so the next step, I need to revise this number 2. The next step, picking your content. So what are you going to have your students learn from? Okay, so keep in mind the cost of textbooks, if that's something that concerns you, or if there is like the one book that students use in your particular subject area, then that's the one obviously you use. Or are you going to crowdsource content yourself? Articles, things, right? Now, you cannot copy articles from books and put them in your class. We cannot do that. Copyright does not allow that. But there are a lot of freely available materials online, okay, for that are copyright free for educational purposes. Yes, you absolutely cannot PDF book chapters. Thank you for putting that in there, Bronca. So Bronca added her course design blueprint in the chat. So go find that. And then for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, we will make sure and put these documents, we will link them in the description so that you have access to those. All right. So you want to decide, what are you going to do for the content that you create in these modules? Definitely including a different types of media, right? Not just reading. Videos. Are you going to make some of those videos? Okay. Maybe. Or are you just going to find them online? Right. And using the library, using the people and the resources available to you. Any questions or comments about that? The resources that you use that other people might find helpful? Online textbooks. Has anybody ever used an online textbook? Free online textbook? They are out there.
No, I have not.
They are out there. Daniel is giving you a source in the chat, Scotty Fleetwood in the library as a resource. Merlot, you can find some free textbooks in Merlot, but you can also just Google it. Free textbook and put in your topic of the subject that you teach and see what you can find. All right, so once you have your overarching goals of what you want your students to learn, and then you have, okay, I think I want to use a bunch of articles, right? I think I'm just going to pick articles, recent articles. You can use Google Scholar, you can use the library. We have access to a myriad of databases. You don't even have to use Google Scholar, okay? So you're just going to use articles that it says you don't have access to what documents? Oh gosh, not again, Jennifer. We'll make it work. We'll figure it out. We do have a lot of issues with SharePoint. We put things in a public file and then the permissions just change.
Oh,
You
okay,
complain
no
about
problem.
it. We complain about it with DNIS all the time. We don't know why it keeps happening. Oh, those are in your personal OneDrive? Okay. Maybe we can put those in the public one, even though we put them in the public one, it sometimes changes anyway. Okay. So once you have that decision made of what you're going to have them learn from, then you decide, you break it down to the topics that you want to cover during the different weeks in your course. Okay, so this is when you're breaking things up into the different weeks. That's when these course blueprints or your Excel files or your old school thing is really, really helpful, because that's when you can visually see this is how the course is going to play out. Because you really want those topics to be broken up before you make any big decisions about assessments, about midterms, about finals, about anything else. Have all, if you have 16 weeks, if you have 10 weeks, if you have 6 or 8 or whatever, okay, because each college has different timelines, okay, have those topics decided, all right? And then once you have those topics decided, that's when you start digging in and taking those big outcomes that you decided in at step 1, right? These are my big outcomes that I want the students to learn. And then you break those into those smaller objectives. So whatever outcome, that big goal number 1, all right, I'm going to break that down into something smaller. And that's going to be covered in, let's say, week 1, week 3, and week 5. All right, once that's done, goal number 1 is crossed off. It's going to be met. Step down, goal number 2. That's going to be met in week 2, week 4, and week 6. Cross that off. Okay, that helps kind of keep yourself organized so that you're meeting the bigger goal. And sometimes these are dependent on your program. Your program tells you what you have to meet. Sometimes this isn't up to you, but sometimes it is up to you. It just depends on where you're teaching. Okay, so if it's completely up to you, then it's a lot more responsibility on your shoulders. Okay. But if it's not up to you, then just this is how you make it work. Just breaking it down to individual objectives. And maybe the work is already done for you because somebody's already done this work previously in a course, and maybe you're just revising it. So that's even better. So this workshop here is not about writing those objectives. It's not what this one's about. We have another one about writing objectives. But you need to make sure, I'm very sorry, sometimes those objectives have to be measurable and observable, and that Bloom's taxonomy will help you. But that workshop is going to be covered. That will be covered in a different workshop. The next thing that you do after that is you create your assignments and your assessments that measure those objectives. Okay. And that's when, like, I know it's old school and Peg does it on her spreadsheet, but like, it's like everything kind of like you can take a little line and you can draw to it. And it's like, yeah, that goes with that, that goes with that, that goes with that. And like when we do the objective workshop, whether it's me or whether it's Peg or somebody else, it's like, once you have that objective measured, it's done. You don't have to have multiple things that measure that objective, just one thing, and then that's done. So that way it's like you don't have to have your students doing multiple things, right? It's like if you have a quiz and you're measuring all these things by a quiz, then don't have your students doing a whole bunch of busy work. It doesn't make any sense. So what are your biggest questions, your biggest concerns, your biggest worries when it comes to designing a class from scratch or redesigning a class from scratch?
So I can tell you one of my issues is when they rearrange chapters and you're working all on it and you're redoing all the objectives, it's the test questions then don't align. And then we have to redo the test. Like right now, I've spent hours upon hours trying to align everything and then make new test questions. And I don't feel as though that's my strength. I feel, I feel like clinical knowledge and didactic knowledge is my strength, but not necessarily making up those test questions. And I was thinking of using ChatGPT, but then it's just a lot of time and effort. So I think that's one thing that I've been working on that's taken a lot of time.
And so when you say they, do you mean the publishers?
Yeah, the publishers changed the book that we use and they rearranged and added new chapters. And then you kind of have to realign everything, and then it doesn't sometimes make sense the order that they put it in. And so then I had to redo quite a bit this last time when they redid the book, right? When they did a new version.
Do any instructional designers have advice in this
I think
circle?
testing banks is something that I did think of. Peg put that in, but the problem is I think the students actually have access to that. So
They probably have, it's not hard to find those.
yeah. Well, I Googled them and I was able to find them. So I'm like, well, if I can Google them, the students can. So it's a challenge.
Do they have it in the format that the book publisher have, and then maybe you can download them and then insert them so that it wouldn't take as much time?
So the ones that the book has, the students have access to.
And the ones that you give, they don't have access to.
Right. I mean, I'm making them up. Right. But I think it's frustrating because I would think that a book would have test questions that wouldn't be accessible to the students, but they don't. All of the ones that they have are accessible to the students.
The
So
test banks are, the question banks?
yes. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
So designers, I have a question for you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot in the middle of this workshop here, but do you think that this is something that a designer would be able to help a faculty member with?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So like if a faculty, Julianne, for example, comes to you and says, I really need help with these tests, with designing some test questions with this chapter, would you be able to help?
I think so.
And
Yeah.
just FYI, I just went in, and question banks aren't public by default. There's a setting that's off on yours, apparently.
But if they're
Oh.
not difficult to find, that's what
Right.
that's what she's saying.
Students can get access. So if you Google it, you can get them. I don't know, if some students get access and then they post them, I'm not sure, but I did a
Right.
Google search for the new book and I was able to access all the ones that I have access to. So I said,
Well,
okay.
and know this, that I mean, from my intent, from my standpoint, it just stands to prove that it's a game of whack-a-mole, right? With
Mhm.
tests and test questions.
Mhm.
So while I understand the need to prep them for the multiple choice exams, et cetera, what I would recommend is giving them as many practice tests as they want to take, but then find some other form of assessment to make sure that they actually know the material. Because I mean, I went through and I was working with another faculty member, and I actually went to Coursera and pulled up every exam she'd ever given. And she
Yeah,
was
I mean,
mortified.
so the debate about that is like if you already have a really high pass rate and we think we're doing really well and we're giving them the practice questions, so there's only so much time that they can spend. They work full time and we do need to prep them for these exams, right? So these are the only 3 courses that we do prep them with multiple choice test questions that they will see on those exams. And so I feel a little uncomfortable deviating with these particular courses away from multiple choice because we have such a high pass rate. I mean, some of our programs don't, but obviously we're keeping in mind the most important information and giving them those test questions to practice, and they're doing well on those exams. And I think as we move to competency based, that is a question I have is, are these exams going to continue to be multiple choice? Because it doesn't seem like that means that's just knowledge based. It's not behavior. It's not, are you ready to practice? And so I don't know if our governing bodies that, give these exams for certification are going to change and move away from multiple choice. But right now we still have to prepare them for the multiple choice. So I've grappled with that.
That's tough.
I made a bank for a college of nursing that wasn't multiple choice, and it was a whole bunch of questions, and you just give me the answers and I put them in there. Did you ever see that bank?
I mean, it probably wouldn't be helpful because we have pediatric specific chapters that we have to I mean, I'm not sure what you're saying, general questions or?
I'm gonna send you the bank and I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay. Anyway, I don't mean to monopolize the time. It's just something that I grapple with when we, update books, chapters and stuff, is just writing those test questions because I don't feel like I'm an expert at that. So,
We can
and
definitely
ChatGPT
help
is,
you, Julianne.
huh?
We can definitely help you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll reach out then because I did map the questions that are in the book, but I still need more. Because that alone took me a lot of time to map which ones I could actually find still in the book.
I can imagine. Bronca, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so I've helped faculty write questions or kind of rewrite them based on their textbook questions that they found. But like for things like this, I like to say work with like 2 or 3 of your faculty members and develop these courses, and along the lines of what Lynette said, put them in a question bank, right? So that let's say you've developed 4 questions around the same a topic of pediatric like triage or something, right? That you can pull those questions so that you're not always using those same questions each term for your students. You know what I mean? And it does prepare them. I understand you guys are trying to prepare them for their NCLEX and all their exams and their board exams that they're going to be doing pretty soon. But you can also follow along those lines too of how NCLEX develops their questions. I know it sounds like a lot of work having to, create your own questions, but I think if you have them handy in like a question bank that you can just pull from them.
But that's what
Yeah.
she's saying is that she's found that the testing banks weren't secure and that students were finding them.
I don't see how that's possible, especially if you're using Canvas.
No,
Course-
they can't,
No.
no. The testing banks from the publishers are findable, but
Yeah,
not the question banks that the faculty members themselves create and house within Canvas. Those
right.
the students
Right,
can't
that's
find.
what I was posting about earlier, but then I thought that was the
I think that was just a miscommunication.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, any other issues that you're finding or points of stress, problems when you're redesigning, starting fresh, anything that you want to talk about in the last couple of minutes?
I designed a course. This is Jennifer. I have a cold, so it doesn't sound like me, but it is. um, I designed a course. It's the first of our nurse educator certificate series. There's 4 courses. This is the first one. And I'm just worried that the assessments and the assignments for each module, you don't know how they're going to go over. It's just kind of, okay, I guess this will, I guess this will make sense. Or is it too much work? Is it too much work for me even? You know what I mean? Like, am I creating more work for myself than? So we're just going to have to see how it goes, I think, this first run through.
Have you had a designer come look at it to give you just some feedback real quick?
No, I'll do that.
Yeah, ask one of them. I mean, they're so experienced and have seen like so many courses. They'll be able to give you some overall feedback of what they think.
Okay, I'll share I have an detailed outline with each week and what the assessments are.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
Peg.
thank you.
One thing I just put in the chat that's really helpful when you're designing a course is the workload estimator that was built by Rice University, but then got passed over to Wake Forest. And what's nice about it is that I don't know about you, but as a subject matter expert in my terms, or in my topics, I regularly just try to cram every single thing I know into every single unit because, they only get 2 weeks with me or 3 weeks with me. Therefore, I have to give them everything I know, which really doesn't work because it's overwhelming to them almost all the time. So the workload estimator will help you to determine how much work you're putting into a course. And then following up on the assessments, Jennifer, have really found AI to be helpful when writing directions for assessments because they pick up so much more than what they fill in details that I overlook because I tell people how to do things based on what I know. And so by definition, I skip a lot of steps because I assume that they know how to do it. And so I find that AI directions pick up all those little nuances that I would forget to do.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you everyone for coming today. And hopefully this Back to Basics session 1 is really helpful. Back to Basics session 2 will be in another month or so, and look for that invite in your Outlook calendar and in our monthly newsletters. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.